I have never met a single person in my life who has the same loyalty to the water starters as the fire starter people or even the grass starter people. I don't know what it is about the water type that prevents it from having people be as enthralled with them as the other types, but it is what it is. I say this because I opened up my fire starter ranking video with a joke about people who only ever pick the fire starters, but I sat here staring at my computer for roughly 40 minutes trying to come up with some sort of stereotype for people who only pick the water starters. I don't know, maybe you guys have like dry scalps? There, go wash your hair or something. The water type starters have unfortunately been dealt the shortest straw generation after generation as far as competitive viability goes. This doesn't mean that the water starters have no viable Pokemon among them, or even very few viable Pokemon, but the water starters just don't hit the same heights as the other two types. Fire types have Incineroar, grass types have Rillaboom, and water types have, well, I don't know to be honest, I still have to rank them. Just keep in mind that these rankings are relative to each other and not among Pokemon broadly, meaning that an S-tier water starter does not mean it's an S-tier Pokemon. Writing intros is hard, let's just get into it today. I'm going to be ranking the water type starters based on their overall competitive viability in VGC. We'll take a heavy bias towards the Pokemon that are considered competitively viable today, but I'll be awarding bonus points if the Pokemon has a strong past or has just had a long competitive history. Anyways, leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, turn notifications, begin.
That's a tank!
Blastoise has no real reason not to be ranked low. I mean, we're talking about a Pokemon with Gen 1 stats. Then again, we're also talking about a Gen 1 starter Pokemon, dude. Their dad is Junichi Masuda. Blastoise is a Nepo baby. It had to be if it was going to make Gen 1 stats like these work out. 79 HP, 83 attack, 100 defense, 85 special attack, 105 special defense, and 78 speed. Like, I get that across the board it doesn't have one particularly low stat, but that comes at the expense of it not even having one moderately high stat. You mean to tell me the turtle with 2 cannons on its back can't launch water as hard as Ammonite? See, I chose Ammonite here because the meta reason for this being a low stat is just power creep, but Ammonite's also from Gen 1, so you can't blame power creep for this weird stat decision. Blastoise makes up for its middling stats not through having a broken ability or even having access to broken moves, but through Game Freaks stepping in and tilting the scale so in favor of their favorite little guy that you can't ignore it. Yeah, it's got access to Fake Out, Yawn, Water Spout, and other fun tools, but it wouldn't have half of its results if it weren't for its Mega and Gigantamax forms. Mega Blastoise grants Blastoise a solid buff by increasing its bulk and special attack, but strangely enough, not touching that speed stat at all. Its new ability becomes Mega Launcher, which causes all pulse moves to have a 50% boost in power. In Blastoise's case, this grants it access to 120 power Dark Pulse, 127 power Dragon Pulse, and 90 power Water Pulse. This news was met with a resounding, okay, from the Pokemon community, as 90 power Water Pulse is just pretty cool, but Blastoise also had access to 80 power Scald, which can burn, so, you know, your call there. Mega Blastoise did have some niche usage in the 2018 season of VGC on teams where it was mostly just sort of a water spout bot, with its highest placement being a 4th place finish at Dallas Regionals 2018 on Sam Odell's team, alongside Tapu Lele and Psychic Seed Hawlucha, but it doesn't have much beyond a few decent placements in that season. Blastoise was far more useful during Generation 8's Dynamax formats, where it was given access to its new signature G-Max move, G-Max Cannonade. This was one of the few max moves which dealt huge initial damage followed by 4 turns of 1/6 max HP chip. Blastoise is able to chunk the opposing team for huge damage since, as a water type attack, this move was boosted by Rain being active on the field. However, G-Max Blastoise was a far more niche option compared to G-Max Charizard and G-Max Venusaur. This, combined with the fact that at the time most of Sword & Shield's VGC circuit lacked in-person events, has led to G-Max Blastoise having a pretty limited number of high placements to reference here. That being said, it was a solid option on Zacian teams thanks to its positive matchup into Groudon and Charizard, and it even won the 2022 Santiago Regional Championships. As far as base Blastoise goes in today's metagame, it's not a bad Pokemon overall, but it is struggling to keep up with Gen 9 power creep, at least without its nepotism forms. It's effectively limited to being a Fake Out and Water Spout bot once again, and not a particularly good one since we have Rillaboom running around. With all that in mind, you know things are kind of dire as far as the water type starter's viabilities, because I am still gonna give this guy an A tier ranking. It's just got way too much history and so much potential. Blastoise is the potential man of water type starters. This channel is partnered with GamerSupps. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order GamerSupps through my link in the description down below or with code Moxie boosted at checkout for 10% off. GamerSupps is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video. What is there to say about Feraligatr? He's Feraligatr. Look, I know I just called Blastoise Potential Man, but maybe all of these water-type starters are kind of Potential Man, or Potential Mon, I guess. Feraligatr was granted a remixed stat spread from Blastoise with a pretty solid base 105 attack stat in bulk, but come on, man, did we really have to keep the 78 speed? I suppose it's not too bad since Feraligatr has had access to Dragonance for a while now. Boosting speed and attack definitely isn't bad on a Pokemon that's built like this, and it gets even better when you consider the fact that Feraligatr has access to the ability Sheer Force. Sheer Force causes all moves with a secondary effect to never have that secondary effect ever happen in exchange for a 30% boost in power. This also, for some reason, causes Life Orb recoil to never happen on Sheer Force boosted moves. Not sure quite why, but it's been that way since day one and Game Freak hasn't fixed it, so everyone shut up. Let Feraligatr have some fun. That being said, even with all this potential, Feraligatr has basically never accomplished anything in VGC. No, really, I'm not joking. This is what its page looks like on Limitless. It's just completely empty. How do you even do that? Like, how has no one at least tried to make you work? I mean, if enough people like a Pokemon, one of them is bound to make a deep run at a tournament with it. Look, even Magikarp has more placements than Feraligatr on Limitless. I'd speak more on what Gator can do, but there's just like no data to go off of here. D tier, I guess. I mean, it's bad, but it doesn't seem too difficult to work with. Just no one's done it yet, I guess. Swampert is a pretty strange case. When it first came out, Water Ground was a unique typing that it shared only with Whiscash, who it outright outclassed. But nowadays, it has to compete with Seismitoad and, more importantly, Gastrodon. Gastrodon just does basically everything Swampert would want to do in a VGC match, but a little better. Gastrodon not only has slightly better bulk and many of the same moves that Swampert has access to, but Gastrodon also has access to recovery as well as Storm Drain to redirect water type attacks into itself while boosting its special attack. The very existence of Gastrodon left Swampert wondering what it could do in a modern metagame, other than just being a worse alternative to Gastrodon with Wide Guard. Luckily for Swampert, it was one of the few Pokemon selected to get access to a Mega Form. This Mega Form completely changed the way that Swampert was played, as it granted Swampert a massive 150 attack stat, increased defenses, and a slight increase in speed that it would combine with its new ability Swift Swim. Swift Swim causes Mega Swampert to have double speed and rain, allowing for it to click powerful water-type moves like Liquidation to rack up huge damage against opposing Pokemon, and having access to Stab Earthquake on top of that made it even scarier. While Mega Swampert did grant Swampert a form that distinguishes it from Gastrodon and its own little niche, having your Swift Swim Sweeper take up a Mega Slot wasn't something most players were keen on. For this reason, Swampert was viewed as a powerful Pokemon, but not always the most cost-efficient option for a team. For this reason, most teams that used Mega Swampert would also have a secondary Mega like Gardevoir or Salamence to make up for some difficult matchups. Mega Swampert did see some success with it having multiple top 8 finishes under its belt, as well as a first place finish at the 2018 Chile special event. With Megas gone in Generation 9, Swampert has struggled to find even one niche in the Rillaboom infested metagame. As far as water types go, most teams would prefer something like an Urshifu or Ogerpon Wellspring, and as far as ground types go, Landorus Incarnate and Ursaluna just kinda have things locked down at the moment. If you wanted to use Swampert today, it would have to be a very intentional team building process to include it on your team. So its results in Gen 9 are extremely limited. All things considered, it's a pretty solid Pokemon though, so let's keep Swampert in B tier thanks to that Mega Form giving it so much history. Behold, the only water-type starter to ever win the World Championships. Clearly, Empoleon is going into S tier. No, just no. Empoleon is a really interesting Pokemon, don't get me wrong. It had the potential to be a great Pokemon for the first few generations it was available in, had Game Freak swapped the ability Defiant with the more fitting ability Competitive. You could easily imagine competitive Empoleon finding a niche in VGC 2018 by being a Pokemon that gets a special attack boost from Incineroar's Intimidate, has the potential to one-shot Landorus, and has resistances to Fairy-type attacks, letting it wall out most Tapus. However, it was only granted this ability change midway through Generation 9 via the Indigo Disc DLC. This was far too late for it to ever matter. As in modern Pokemon, it's competing for a spot on a team against the likes of Goldengo, Milotic, and various other Pokemon that would fill a similar role. This isn't to say that Empoleon doesn't have any desirable tools, but they're almost all shared by other Pokemon on this list, including Icy Wind, Yawn, and Scald. While Empoleon stats do lend to it being among the bulkiest of these Pokemon, and its ability competitive does allow for it to have higher damage output, there's just not currently a place for it in the metagame. And all of its best placements come from a single person. Brian Fournier seems to be dead set on making Empoleon work in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet by taking full advantage of Swamp from Water and Grass Pledge. But when it's only got one person repping it and one major win in the past, it's really hard to place Empoleon too high on this tier list. It'll be going in C tier. Samurott is kind of like if Feraligatr didn't even have that high of a potential to begin with. Samurott has been cursed with being a mixed attacking water type with middling bulk and middling speed. During a playthrough of the game's story, a jack of all trades. During a competitive battle, a master of none. Samurott's entire competitive history, according to Limitless, is limited to a single top 3 finish at the 2011 World Championships at the hands of Matthew Coyle. While impressive for the era, Samurott has failed to accomplish anything since then. With just 100 attack and 108 special attack, it's hard to justify using it as your team's water type, especially considering it just doesn't tank hits as well as other Pokemon. Its moveset is similar to every other water type save for its niche access to Sacred Sword, but this move would go on to be far more important at the hands of its Hisuian form. So let's just drop this guy down in F tier and move on to Hisuian Samurott. There's just not much to be said about base Samurott. It's certainly one of the water starters ever.
I hate it here.
Hisuian Samurott can be described as Samurott if Game Freak left it in the oven for just a few more minutes. Like, Hisuian Samurott is just a direct upgrade to base Samurott. Its attack and special attack were swapped to allow for its physical move pool to shine more, its speed was increased at the expense of its bulk, it's even granted the dark typing, meaning it gets stab on knockoff and can't be affected by prankster moves. But the biggest buff to this Pokemon comes in the form of its signature move and ability that works synergistically. Hisuian Samurott gained access to the move Ceaseless Edge. This Dark-type attack is a 65 base power, 90 accuracy physical Dark move, with each successful hit from this move leaving another layer of spikes on the opponent's side of the field to punish any switches made by the opponent. Ceaseless Edge is a cutting move similar to Aqua Cutter and Sacred Sword, meaning that it's boosted by Hisuian Samurott's new ability in Sharpness. Sharpness simply grants all cutting moves a 50% boost in power. This causes Hisuian Samurott to have access to 97 power Ceaseless Edge, 105 power Aqua Cutter, and even 135 power Sacred Sword. This skyrocketed Hisuian Samurott's potential damage and actually let it fill a niche for a very short time in Regulation H. This format had steel types like Archaludon, Kingambit, and Goldengo running rampant and dominating the metagame. Hisuian Samurott was an anti-meta pick that was capable of dealing significant damage to each one of these Pokemon via its cutting moves and even walled them out save for Archaludon using Electro Shot. It most often ran the Assault Vest, allowing for it to tank Draco Meteors and make it rains from the opposing Pokemon. It only had a few placements to its name, but its effectiveness was undeniable for the short time that it was relevant. Its highest placement so far is a 5th place finish at the Lille Regionals, piloted by Eduardo Cunha. For these reasons, and taking into consideration that this niche only occurred once for a very short time, I'll place Hisuian Samurott at the top of C tier. You know, the fun part about only talking about VGC in these videos is that I don't really need to acknowledge Ash Greninja. Look, I got nothing against the guy, I just don't feel like researching it. Something specs Water Shuriken. I don't know, I didn't play Gen 7 OU. Greninja is currently the single fastest water starter Pokemon and has one of the best typings in Water Dark. While on face value, its damage output might seem underwhelming with only 95 attack and 103 special attack, it's not to be underestimated. Greninja was granted a broken ability in Protean. This ability allowed for Greninja to change its type to whatever type of move it was about to use, meaning it always had that 50% increase in power from Stab. Greninja was capable of sniping the Fairy-type Tapu Pokemon with Stab Gunk Shot, outspeed an Oko Landorus Therian, and even had a pretty serviceable matchup into Incineroar since Hydro Pump and Scald would deal significant damage to it. However, Greninja may be known more today for its gimmicks. Greninja was used for its 2 signature moves. It had access to Mat Block and Water Shuriken. Mat Block causes all moves to deal no damage to Greninja and its partners, but this move had no priority and was only usable on the first turn Greninja was on the field, similar to Fake Out. This allowed for Greninja to excel next to setup Pokemon who would generally prefer not to have to eat a hit before they got their move off, like Klinger's Soulblaze Kommo-o or Geomancy Xerneas. But this wasn't common by any means. It was just one of the uses for Greninja that we saw back in the day. In modern formats, Greninja is used for its move Water Shuriken, which is a multi-hit special water-type attack with priority. This attack was used to nearly guarantee multiple stamina boosts on Assault Vest Archaludon so it can body press opposing Pokemon for huge damage, and it would also grant multiple Rage Fist boosts on Scarf Morph Annihilate, and would one-shot Pokemon with the high base power Rage Fist. These were certainly gimmicks, but they were notable enough and got enough placements for me to have to mention it in this section. Overall, Greninja has had a pretty solid career despite how niche it was, and with Protean being nerfed today to only activate with the first move the Pokemon uses, Greninja only got less consistent. Because of that, it's just going to be going into B tier. Primarina may be the only outright great water-type starter. While the others have had their moments here and there and saw niche usage, Primarina has had far more consistency over the years it's been available than anything else on this list. And I mean, it just goes without saying that being a water fairy type is usually going to make a Pokemon powerful. Primarina has some pretty impressive stats with acceptable physical bulk, great special bulk, and a beefy 126 special attack stat. This combined with its signature ability of Liquid Voice, which causes all sound-based attacks to become water type, led to Primarina having several runs at the top. Primarina has been able to run several sets to great success, including Calm Mind Leftovers, Choice Specs, Life Orb, and even Assault Vest. Its positive matchup into metagame staples like Incineroar, Urshifu, and Dragonite in various formats have led to it appearing in several top cuts and being a Pokemon everyone had to be prepared for, especially in Regulation H. Even in Generation 8, Primarina managed to find play, with it taking second at Players Cup 1 on G-Sock Lee's team. It's just such a workhorse of a Pokemon, and it stays strong today. While it may not be an S-tier Pokemon overall, with it being in direct competition with Pokemon like Tapu Fini, it's the only Pokemon on this list worthy of taking the S-tier placement as far as water-type starters go. Inteleon is what you get when you order Greninja off of Temu. Oh, I'm not getting that sponsorship ever now, am I? Struggling bank accounts aside, the only thing broker than me is this Pokemon. And that's got nothing to do with it having low stats or even terrible abilities, but it's almost entirely to do with the fact that what
Inteleon
does well is not what people want for their team.
Inteleon
Has an impressive 120 base speed stat and 125 base special attack stat, meaning it should hypothetically be a good Pokemon. And that's true. It should hypothetically be good, but not all hypotheticals work out in reality. Inteleon has only ever seen play in early VGC 2020, where the overall speed tier of the format was low enough that Inteleon was like top 3 in terms of the speed of Pokemon. But once players got access to literally any other water type, Inteleon stopped seeing play nearly altogether. Yeah, Life Orb Max Geyser hurts pretty bad, but players over time gravitated more towards Coil Hypnosis Milotic, since dealing 40% with a max move isn't nearly as devastating as putting a max Pokemon to sleep and taking away that powerful resource altogether. The only interesting thing Inteleon had going for it was a high crit rate off a Snipe Shot and the fact that that move couldn't be redirected, but critical hits on a water type at the time weren't very important. We'd only figure that out with Urshifu later on, and that's a completely separate deal. Inteleon's lack of interesting abilities and moves caused it to remain in obscurity even today. Yeah, I could talk about its G-Max form ignoring abilities, but when has that ever really mattered? Like, oh cool, I can deal 30% to Dynamax Calyrex Shadow and ignore the Gastrodon on the field. Surely I'll be able to tank the move they hit me back with. Yeah, okay, buddy. Inteleon isn't bad, it's just bland. It's the saltine crackers of water-type starters. High D tier. Finally, we make it to Quaquaval, aka The Percolator, aka Young Himothy, aka Smooth McDuck, featuring Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20. Okay, I kinda had to hype bro up here because Quaquaval has more aura than any starter on this list, and yet it hasn't done anything, like, ever. But in their defense, they're the newest of the starters. It's also directly competing with Urshifu Rapid Strike, as they're both water fighting types. And be so for real, if you were waiting to be picked for Kickball, and the only two left to pick from were you and John Cena, are you really going to be that upset when you get picked last? Its stats aren't bad at all, and you can definitely tell that they were trying to set it apart from Urshifu in some way. It's got solid bulk, a great attack stat at 120, and okay speed at 85. Not only does it get an attack boost with each KO thanks to its hidden ability Moxie, but it's got a signature move in Aqua Step that causes it to boost its speed every time the move is used. Like, it's no Urshifu, but it's certainly not terrible. In fact, in Regulation H, the format that banned Urshifu, Quaquaval had some decent results. Are they great? No, but 33rd at Baltimore Regionals is still pretty good for what the Pokemon was. And hey, that's Blake Silver, I know that guy. Rest assured, the dude with the highest Quaquaval finish can dance just as well as the Pokemon. It's not a fundamentally bad Pokemon, it's just in direct competition with a force of nature that kind of breaks the rules of the game. To err on the side of caution and give my genuine opinion on the Pokemon overall, I'm just going to throw Quaquaval right in the middle of the list at C tier. It's good for what it is. With that, our final tier list is as follows. In F tier, we have Samurott, who cannot find a niche for its life. In D tier, we have Feraligatr, who could do something if only it weren't being outclassed by most other water types. And we have Inteleon, who's there for the exact same reason, just on the special attacking side of things. In C tier, we have Empoleon, who got buffed far too late for it to matter. We have Quaquaval, who would be solid if it weren't in the shadow of Urshifu, and we have Hisuian Samurott, who had a brief moment in the spotlight. In B tier, we have Greninja, who managed to fill just a couple of niches over the years and managed to sneak into various gimmick teams even today, and we have Swampert, whose Mega Form kept it relevant enough to be considered a threat and do pretty well in a few formats. In A tier, we have Blastoise, whose nepotism keeps it relevant generation after generation, and in S tier, we have Primarina, who's probably the only Pokemon on this list who I'd ever actually bring to a major tournament. It's got a lot going for it with its solid stats, great damage output, ability, and typing. But what do you think about my rankings? Where would you place these Pokemon? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It means the world to me. If you want to support me further, you can check out my Patreon page or become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button below the video. This gets you sneak peeks at future videos, access to bonus content, and access to my supporter-only Discord server where you can hang out and team build with other community members. You also see your name at the end of all my videos like all these lovely people. Special thanks to my most boosted supporters, Avatar67 and Lilith Elegant, for the generous pledges. Another way to support me is to check out all the videos on the playlist on screen right now. I know you'll find something in there that you'll enjoy. I also stream on both YouTube and Twitch Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. CST, so you can tune into that whenever you want. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.